everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday. Hope that you're doing well. What a great way to end the week, and we can spend some time together talking more about data science and talking more about the data science school that I'm trying to get off the ground here. But hope that you're doing well. Hope that your weekend is off to a good start. For some people, Friday is the weekend. But here in the US, it's the last day of the work week. Looking forward to some things I have going on this weekend. Gonna do some chores and stuff around the house. My parents are coming back to stay with me for a few days, so just trying to get everything all ready for everything I got coming up. But anyways, I hope that you're doing well. I hope your work week's ending well. I hope your family's well. Let me know how you're doing in the chat. Feel free to say hello. But the whole purpose of these live streams, or this series of live streams, is for me to try to introduce all of you to my vision and my hopes for this data science school that I want to start. As many of you know, for a very long time, I've resisted doing pre-recorded content, but I decided that if I could find some good software and a good way to go about it, I would start my own data science school. And I really started it with the goal of making it as accessible as possible. So I'm trying to price it at an accessible point. But really just kind of wanting to get the best data science information that I can out there. And it's a huge undertaking. It's a huge undertaking for me to come up with all of these courses, right? I mean, I know what I want to talk about. I know the content, but putting it together, getting it down on paper, getting it down in media, getting it out there in a way that's conducive to learning, not easy. That's not easy to do. That's all very challenging. So that's why I thought, why not build it in public, right? There's no reason for me to sit here alone in the dark and struggle. I might as well struggle in front of all of you. So we've been doing a great job of coming up with the curriculum and other things that people want to see. I've really enjoyed seeing some of the feedback that all of you have given me. I think I've done a pretty good job of incorporating that feedback. I've been listening to you guys, and by and large, there's been some really, really good suggestions. So I'd like to think we're getting to the end of putting the curriculum together. I've also shown you guys some of the software that I'm using. I'm using a learning management system known as Moodle. It's very popular, open source, used around the world. I didn't know even it existed until about a month or so ago. But I've been working with it. I kind of get it. I see why it's popular. So yeah, we're going to keep on using Moodle. We're going to keep on putting the courses together. Now, at the same time, I am going to obviously work away from the stream because it's going to take me more than an hour a day to put this together, right? And I want you guys to be surprised. I want you guys to also be able to kind of, attend the streams, but then also be pleasantly surprised when you actually attend the school itself, right? I don't want the school to just, or these live streams to be spoilers for you, right? So balancing all of that, you are welcome to hang out and ask questions and help with the school, give your input. But really, I'm just trying to build in public and hopefully also try to get more of you to sign up for the school, because the signups are going great, but I still need about 1,000 students to sign up. And, part of this is also the data scientist in me, right? A data scientist experiments. So I'm putting it out there. I'm looking for 1,000 students. If I can't find it, that's okay. That means the idea is probably not viable. That's okay. And I'll just save it for another time, right? But you got to try it. You got to run the experiment. So hopefully, if you are interested, please sign up. Please sign up sooner rather than later so I can see the support there. August 1st is the intended launch date, but I don't want you to wait until August 1st to sign up. The whole point of being a founding member is that you'd support ahead of time. I am more accessible than Netflix in most countries. I'm pricing myself intentionally so that it'll be lower than Netflix. So hopefully you guys will sign up. Okay. The links are in your chats. So let me make one adjustment on my software here. Because I'm seeing some chats on Instagram that are not appearing on my software. Okay, there we go. All right, so let me look at the chats real quick. If you're in my chats, feel free to say hello. Let me know how you're doing. Denelson, our good friend from LA, says, "Good morning, everyone." Denelson from LA. Hope everyone is staying safe. Thank you, Denelson. Hope the same for you. Hope that you're doing well out there in LA. I was just out there, Tuesday? Very rainy week in LA. I took my dog with me, and my dog hates the rain. He hates anything that's wet or misty or foggy. He is not a fan of anything that's wet, so he did not have a good time in LA. But had a safe trip out there. So hope you're safe out there, Denelson. Hope that everything is going well in your world. I know, I know who you are in real life, but I always screw up pronouncing your name on Instagram. Is it Alile? I think it's Alile. Yeah. Alile says, "I am in. Thank you for having this initiative." Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you to both Alile and Denelson. I know both of you have signed up. Thank you so much for that. So guys, if you're looking to sign up for the Data Science School, the links are already pinned in your chats, okay? Sujay71 says, "Hi Dennis." Hey Sujay, how are you? Sujay, I can't remember if this is your first time here. No, I think you've been here before, if I remember right now. But hope you're doing well, Sujay. Let us know what you're up to. Let us know what the weekend is going to do for you. Like I said, my weekend is starting over here. Going to do some chores around the house. Going to make sure I'm ready for my parents to visit. It's always different when you have guests, right? No matter who the guests are, right? You gotta get the house ready and things like that, right? So gotta make sure that my cleaning is done, my kitchen is ready, all that good stuff. But glad that you guys are here. If you guys want to share your weekend plans, let me know also. And if there's anybody else in the chat, go ahead and say hello. All right, so I'm trying to think about where I want to pick up today. We've been doing a pretty good job of talking about the curriculum for the school. And I kind of feel like we might be ready to move on from that. So why don't we actually continue what we were doing before previously on some streams? And actually start creating some of the sections in Moodle, right? Because that way you guys can also get accustomed to how the Moodle software works. And I think that's good for both of us, right? Because I'm still learning too, right? I'm more than happy to tell you guys that I'm new to Moodle. So I'm learning. I'm going to make mistakes along the way, but hey, that's part of the process, right? Alile says, "My mom will visit too tomorrow working on the house to get it ready." Isn't that so stressful? It's so stressful to get everything ready. So Alile, I feel your pain. Yeah, my parents are visiting, so they like taking over my kitchen when they're here. So I just try to clear everything, make sure they have room to work. But they're gonna come and they're gonna take over the kitchen and do all their things. But yeah, you got to invest time in getting it ready, right? You got to invest time in making sure all the things are clean and ready to go, and you got the clean towels out. Put the nice towels out, right? The guests are coming, right? So got to do all of that today. Sujay says, "My weekend plans involves more of completing coursework. My exams will commence from 29th of May." Okay, cool. That's you got a little bit of time to prepare there, Sujay. So best of luck to you. You got about 3 weeks or so to prepare. So good for you. Yeah, I guess in some parts of the world, colleges are finishing up. In the U.S., most colleges are done by now. They have their graduation ceremonies by now, or during this time period, I should say. But yeah, I know in other parts of the world, colleges go a little bit later into the spring and summer. But congratulations on finishing another year, Sujay. So best of luck on your exams. All right, guys. So I think it might be fun to start on some of these items. And you know what? Just because it's a Friday and it's fun, why don't we talk about the 10 commandments of data science? I envision that as being a whole course. And I'm putting that in the school intro section because I want that to be something that kind of sets the tone for everything I want to teach, right? Like I'm going to stop short of calling it like the what's that word? Like the statement of purpose, or like a mission statement. I don't want to have something like that. But I think it's more about just here's why I've put together the materials you're going to read, right? Like here's why I'm taking a certain path in the things that I'm sharing. So that's kind of what I want to work on. So why don't we work on the 10 commandments of data science? So again, you guys are more than welcome to go to school.datasciencewithdennis.com. That's the homepage. That's where you can see some of the courses that I've laid out. Here is the 10 commandments of data science. Let me log in here. So this is the section for the 10 commandments of data science. Let's start filling in some of these sections. And that way you guys can also learn some of these 10 commandments, right? I don't know well, I mean, look, anything I share with you on these streams is obviously subject to change because I'm going to revise it and I'm likely to revise it, off stream and different things I want to think about later. So I'm going to share some of these, but keep in mind that some of these I'm kind of just giving you like stream of consciousness and they're likely to change. Okay. Osama in the chat says, Osama, hi sir, hope everything is going well. Everything is going very well, Osama. How are you? Hope everything is good for you out there in Morocco. Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. I was going to tell you something, Osama. What was I going to tell you? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I hope you're doing well. Hope your family is good. We're talking about our weekend plans, so let us know what you're doing for the weekend, okay? All right, 10 commandments of data science. I think I'm still learning here, but I'm pretty sure I have to go into edit mode. Okay, and that lets me change this. Okay, so here, this is not going to be called general. This is going to be called welcome. And now we start with the 10 commandments. Let me adjust my keyboard here, guys. I've got my keyboard, I got my microphone. I gotta think about getting a new stand for my microphone. Manoj says, hi sir, Manoj from Bangalore, India. Hey Manoj, how are you? Hope you're doing well, my friend. Welcome. We're talking about our weekend plans and we're also talking about the 10 commandments of data science. So feel free to contribute or just let us know how you're doing, Manoj. Glad you're here. All right. So first command of data science that I want to get out there is that okay, so this one should not be unfamiliar to you if you've seen my content before, right? You guys know that one of my biggest pet peeves, and really kind of like one of the biggest dangers, I think, of people who are studying data science is they say, oh, I want to be a data scientist. Let me go learn Python. Let me go learn PyTorch. Let me go learn Keras. Let me go learn, some math. I found this person telling me I need matrix multiplication. So let me go review that. That's not data science, right? That's not putting you on a path to learning data science. Data science is a process. It's a series of steps. It's the application of the scientific method, right? Well, it's the application of the scientific method with data, I should say, to be more specific. So that is definitely one of the overall themes. You know, again, that tone that I'm setting when everything I want to teach and everything I really want anybody who watches any part of my content to walk away with, right? That data science is a methodology, a process, a series of steps. It's not pandas, it's not Python, it's not R, it's not charts and graphs, and visualizations. It's what you do with the data that results in that, right? So that's the first thing I want to get across. Second thing I want to get across as a commandment is, how am I going to express this one? Let me see if I can express it this way. And by the way, if you guys want to join me in the chat, what are some of these other commandments of data science that you think about? Like, don't give me like tips and tricks. Think about the things that like you have to follow, or you have to know this. What do you guys think? So here's my second one. The way you learn data science is not the way you apply data science. Right? A lot of my focus has always been, from the very beginning, has been about real world data science, because there's not enough information out there about it. And the way that you study data science, or the way you did it for your professor or assignments, or even following tutorials on YouTube, is really not how it's done in the real world, right? So this is something I would definitely want to talk about from the very beginning. What do you guys think? Any others out there? Manoj says, doing good. I'm planning this weekend for my cousin's marriage preparations. Oh, very cool. Congratulations on that. That's always fun to have a wedding in the family. Good for you guys. That sounds like a fun time, Manoj. So Manoj, I think Manoj is proposing one of the commandments here, central limit theorem. I don't know. I don't know if so Manoj, I think you might have come in a little bit later, or after I said this, but I think about this class, about talking about how I can set the tone for the entire school, right? For everything you're going to learn, right? So central limit theorem is definitely important, but that feels more like a numbers or statistics item, right? Like I'm definitely going to add that to my curriculum. I think I can add it here to the basics section. And I think I intended to talk about it here in the law of big numbers. Because central limit theorem and the law of big numbers is, some people would tell you those are synonyms. But yeah, I'm willing to add it here. It's a good addition, Manoj. I'm just not sure that it's like one of the overarching commandments, But let me know what you think about them, Manoj. I'm open to being wrong. Okay, Denelson. Denelson says, keeping personal bias out of the data science process. Yeah. Denelson, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. So Denelson, let me know how this hits you. So Okay, hold on a second. I keep on shaking my camera when I do that. I'm gonna have to move this camera back just a little, guys. Give myself a little bit more space on my desk. All right, that should help there. So, Denelson, I love the suggestion, and this is how I would put it down there. Because to me, it's not just well, I take that back. I like the way you put it as far as keeping the personal bias, but keep in mind that bias can come from a lot of things, right? It can come from your manager, it can come from regulations around you, right? Laws. It can come from anything, right? Personal bias is one source, but there are other sources of bias, right? People tend to form attachments to their business, to their data, to their routine, right? So that creates bias too. So I'd really like to talk about bias on a complete level, not just personal side. Because yeah, a lot of data science is managing bias. You know, some people say that the purest form of data science is the complete removal of bias from your decisions, right? Like, that's what data science is. Can you make completely data-driven decisions? I don't care what I think. I don't care what we've done in our past. The data says to do this. We are going to do this. Right? I mean, that's pure data science, right? So I think it's more about the overall bias. So if you guys have interesting situations with bias, let me know. I'll tell you guys. I'm going to share a story. I don't think I've shared this story before. But I remember. I got to make sure I'm not giving away too much information here. So I was working for a financial company, and they were like a very old school investment firm, and they wanted to do some work around managing complaints in their social media. And I remember that I went out and I did some research, and I was talking to one of the directors, and I said, I'm going to think about how I told this person. I said something like, we get 1,000 mentions in social media a day. Now I'm hiding the numbers here, guys, so bear with me, right? You know, I'm trying to be private here. I said something like, we get 1,000 messages in social media a day. And his immediate reply right away was, no, the number's much higher than that, much higher than that. And like, I had just joined this company like not too long previously, like maybe like it was like my first month or like my first 2 months there. And I wasn't I hadn't earned the right to like, you know, challenge people yet, right? And this guy was a director at the time, or a managing director. I think he was a director. And I basically told him, no, it's 1,000 times a day. And he said, no, it's more than that. And I said, well, what do you have to tell me that? I think it's your personal bias that's telling me that. Like, I literally called him out and I said, well, I think it's your personal bias that makes you think that we're getting mentioned more than that in social media. And he looked a little bit offended, right? Because, you know, I'm still the new guy. But I challenged him and I said, well, you know, you really don't have anything to go on to say that. You're expressing a bias right now. And we kind of agreed to disagree in the moment. But what I had to do is I had to set up an experiment to kind of, you know, prove it, right? So I ran an experiment that completely completely bailed me out, right? Because I shouldn't say that. I mean, it got me credibility, right? So what I did was I went out, I used the Twitter, at the time it was the Twitter API Twitter API lets you monitor certain keywords, right? And and you can set it up to give you a real-time feed on your screen, right? Like you can get the what's it called? What's that? What do they call it? A stream. You can get a stream feed that literally sends you all this stuff in real time, right? So I remember I did an experiment where this was my first time using the Twitter API. So I was, um, I was kind of writing the code myself, and this is all before Gen AI. So I was kind of piecing together the code, like, oh yeah, I need this port, and this is where the stream comes back, and I need to have this. Oh, I need to monitor this, blah 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 blah. And the keyword I was using was the name of the company, the company's Twitter name, and I was doing this on a Saturday. And I sat there and I couldn't, and I wasn't getting any data. I was running my program, I was getting my stream, and I wasn't getting any data. So I was like, oh, let me check this code again. Oh, maybe my stream reader is wrong, or maybe I'm misinterpreting the JSON packets back. And I was looking, I was like, no, my code looks good, but nothing was happening on my screens, right? And then that's when I realized, wait a minute, like, what if there are no messages on the weekend? And then what I did was I switched it over to like a common word. Like I think I picked like the New York Yankees, right? Because there's information on the New York Yankees all the time, right? And as soon as I switched the keyword I was looking for to the New York Yankees, my screen just filled up. Like I was getting messages like crazy. So my code was correct, right? So that gave me like the experiment to be able to say, hey, to go back to this director and this guy who, basically thought I was an idiot at this point, right? I was able to go back to him and tell him, hey, by the way, did you know that we get like 0 mentions on the weekend? Like people only talk about us Monday through Friday. Did you know that? And he said, no, I didn't. And then I showed him what I had done. I said, hey, look, I monitored our account on Saturdays and Sundays, and we basically get like 0 traffic on Saturdays, like literally 0, like nobody talks about us. But Monday through Friday, the screen fills up if you monitor our accounts, right? And that's when I told them, I said, so if you do that, that's how it averages out to about 1,000 mentions a day, so on and so on, right? But that's the kind of stuff you have to do because people have their own biases about how their business operates, even though they have nothing to go on, right? So that's how you have to take like a data-oriented approach to showing people and saying, hey, this is why the numbers are what I tell you they are. And this is how it breaks your own personal bias, right? So I've always held that up as an example of times where, sometimes you just have to overcome people's biases by showing them why things happen the way they do, right? So let me keep up with the chats here. Manoj says, yes, even I feel like it's similar to the law of large numbers. Yeah, Manoj. So central limit theory and law of big numbers, I'm going to keep them as separate topics in the curriculum for now, but that may very well be a combined lesson. We'll see. We'll see. Denelson says, yes, I completely agree with you, Dennis. As someone who is still learning, it can be a challenge to keep biases in check. Yeah. Yeah, it's about removing the biases, right? And also, guys, if you want to use that, I haven't proven this to be true, but to me, just kind of on an anecdotal basis, if you go out and you look for data science jobs or whatever, you start seeing companies that don't call it data science anymore, or they don't call it, well, I mean, yeah, I guess they don't call it data science anymore. Instead, they call it more like decision management. To me, that's a little bit more of a matured company when it comes to algorithms and data science, because the more you use it, the more you realize that that's what it is, right? Removing my bias means that I'm making data-driven decisions. And if I'm making data-driven decisions, then how do I manage those decisions? And that's how you end up with a decision management department, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's the best application of data science, and that's how you end up making decisions for your business that are purely backed up by data, right? And that's a beautiful place to be if you can get there. Toasted bread. Toasted bread. Is this your first time here? I think it might be. Welcome to the chat. Well, you're welcome to hang out. We're also sharing our weekend plans. So let us know what you're up to. So Toasted Bread says a good model can only come from quality data, where data sampling quality methodology are followed. Okay. But Toasted Bread, what is quality data? I'm gonna challenge you guys here a bit, right? Because I hear statements like this all the time, right? But what is quality data? I don't know. And also realize that while you're thinking about that, there can't be a single definition for that. Like literally, right? What's quality NLP data? What's quality image data? Like what does quality image data look like? Like I remember one of the very few like I'm not a big fan of data science competitions. I think they're kind of weird. But one of the very few ones that I've kind of investigated, and I don't think I submitted a solution. I just kind of looked at it for fun. There was a competition that was trying to find a better model for fingerprints. Apparently, fingerprint detection is very difficult. And they had a collection of fingerprints as part of the contest data. And they gave I'm pretty sure they gave a warning in the competition that said that, one, keep in mind that fingerprint data isn't always like direct, like it can be smudged or streaky or things like that. And two, they said that you never know which side is up, right? Like if you have a thumb fingerprint, there's like a million ways I can lay that fingerprint on something, right? So what is quality data in that scenario? Toasted Bread says data collection methodology comes from the same process as a start. No. I don't agree with that, my friend. Because you don't always have control over data collection. You don't always have ways to modify that data collection. I once worked on NLP data that was transcripts of phone calls to a customer service center. So I can't say, oh, this NLP data is bad if it was sourced from a voice transcript, right? Because then, is it the transcript engine that's bad, or is it just the customer service data that's bad? Because the part I forgot to mention is that customer service center was also located overseas, so it was with English speakers but non-native English speakers, right? So you don't always have the ability to adjust those things, Toasted, right? Or like I said, like the fingerprint example I gave you. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to ask for better crime scene pictures? Like, you can't do that, right? You're going to ask them to only send you fingerprints that aren't smudged? Lots of fingerprints are kind of streaky or smudged, right? So I appreciate where your thought process is at, but in the real world, you won't always be able to make adjustments. right? I mean, text is not clean. Images aren't perfectly beautiful and high resolution all the time, right? So I don't know. I don't know. And also keep in mind that in a lot of situations, you're going to, data sets are also limited. And I talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this down here in the data science for executives about what is a data science project. Because here's another thing, guys, not every data science project is profitable. Not every data science project makes sense from a return on investment perspective. I'll give you guys a play out of my own playbook here. Okay. When somebody wants to sit down with me and tell me that they have a data science project idea, like in some sort of corporate environment, my very, 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 very first question is, how many times are you going to run the predictive cycles of this project? Like, do you need this daily? Do you need this to run every minute? Do you need it to run every quarter, every month, every week? How often are you going to run it? Right? You guys should always ask that. That's the first question out of your mouth. Why do I ask that? Because one, it tells me, are you trying to automate a serious process, like something that happens a lot? Or do you just want to remove your team's time for something they do once a quarter? Because the less often you run something, the less likely it is to have a good return on investment, right? Because if that person comes back and says, oh, well, it's 300 records that we do on a quarterly basis. Well, okay, that sucks to do it as a human process, but you might have to do that because developing the algorithm for that is going to take me a long time, right? In addition to that, if you're only running, if that client approaches you and they're doing it on 300 records every quarter, how much training data do you think they're going to give you? Let me know in the chat. Is that a team that's going to give you a lot of training data or a little training data? What do you guys think? If you have to think about that one too long, you might not be ready for data science, right? But what do you guys think? Let me know. Let me know while I read Sujay's reply here. Sujay says, do we need to implement all possible pre-processing techniques and all possible models to see on which it gives the best results? Don't you think this is not an optimal strategy? Why would it not be an optimal strategy, Sujay? I mean, first of all, realize that, again, depending on the problem, you're going to have different pre-processing strategies, right? The way you pre-process image data is completely different than how you pre-process structured data, which is completely different than how you pre-process NLP data. So you really can't say that it's suboptimal. I mean, how can you say that, right? There's so many different approaches. Do you think, and then all possible models to see on which it gives the best results? Don't you think this is not an optimal strategy? What are you talking about? That's data science. Data science is exactly the execution of those experiments. Like, what do you think a data scientist does? So, Sujay, I think you have like two different thought processes there, right? Because you talked about the pre-processing. So that one, I'm going to tell you that you can't make those statements because pre-processing is so unique to every problem. And then the second part about trying all possible models, like that's the work of a data scientist. If you don't think you want to be doing that, what do you think a data scientist does all day? So guys, give me some feedback there. Because maybe some of you read this and agreed with Sujay. Hey, Sujay's right. This sounds suboptimal. That's a lot of models and stuff to test. But what do you guys think a data scientist does? That's the work, right? Like, if I didn't try every model, then where's the experimentation? Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, in data science, there is also a concept known as early stopping, right? Where if you know you have a good baseline in another model, and another model approach is not approaching those same results, it's okay to stop that early, right? That's an acceptable practice. Same thing goes for your hyperparameter tuning, right? You can implement like early stopping thresholds if you want. But as far as this being suboptimal, not at all. Like, that's the job. Like, seriously, guys, like, let me know in the chat if you agreed with Sujay. Like, what do you think a data scientist does? Like, that's the job, to go out and try different models, try different pre-processing. Just last week, I had a conversation with one of my clients about that, and they were working on an NLP project, and we were talking about the different pre-processing available for NLP. Some of you might be familiar with stemming or lemmatizing. Is there a law that says you have to use those? No. It's usually a good idea, but there's no law against it. There's no requirement of what stop words you have to look for. You can make up your own stop word lists, right? But that's part of the experimentation. Like, you're supposed to be doing that. Yeah, guys, so let me know. I mean, Sujay, you mentioned you're a student, so maybe that's kind of like where that background is coming from. Because, in school, you're not usually encouraged to try different methods. And if you're taking like a neural networks course, then you're only trying the one neural network that you're studying that week. Like, I get it. But please, guys, never, ever, ever think about, oh my God, I got to do all these models and I got to write all this code. Like that's the job. Like that's the whole role that a data scientist does in the entire process. So again, if that's not clear to you guys, I'd really like to see a answer from you guys on what you think a data scientist does. So yeah, let me know about that one, guys. Okay, so where were we? Oh, right. So I had also had another question in the chat about what happens when the client tells you that they have 300 records on a quarterly basis. Are they going to have a lot of training data or little training data? Because that's excuse me. That's referencing Toasted Bread's earlier reply about data collection methodologies, right? You're not always going to have control over that. You're not always going to get great data. You're not going to be always able to adjust the collection methods for that data. So definitely love the participation, love where you guys are going in your thought process. But what I'm talking about, this is like the stuff you have to learn in the trenches, right? Like, this is what you just learn by actually being out there and doing data science and in a live environment, right? Yeah, so Toasted Bread says not a lot of training data. Yeah, that's exactly right, right? So like I said, guys, that's usually the very, very, very first question I ask of anybody who says, oh, Dennis, let's sit down and talk about this great idea I have for my team. You could really help us out if you did X, Y, and Z. Okay. So if that person tells me it's a process they're going to run on a quarterly basis on 300 records, that's very little training data, right? Because a year's worth of training data is going to be what, like just a little bit over 1,000 records? So it's only run once a quarter. It's only on 300 records because, 300 records, you could probably find some sort of human processing to do it. It doesn't have to be an algorithm. And you just told me you're not going to give me a lot of training data, right? So that's a project as a data scientist. Might be a great algorithm. They might be very enthusiastic about it, but you have to say no. You have to say no because your probability of success on that project has dropped drastically, right? So from an ROI, from a human hours saved, from a just a general career and like a data science reputation perspective, it's low probability of success across the board, right? So tying that back to the previous statement, data collection methodology isn't going to help you in that scenario. You don't always have control over that. It's not always possible to change that. So be careful with that, guys. Be careful with thinking that, oh, well, it's just data collection methodology. No, it's just a bad project. Well, I shouldn't say a bad project. It's just a project that doesn't make sense. Right? And that's okay. You don't have to say yes to every project. That's totally okay. All right. So we were talking about biases, which I think is a great addition. What else? What else do you guys want to add here as the commandments? I have a couple more in my mind, but what else do you guys want to add here as commandments? Here's one. And I'm going to do another one. Here's two that I think most academic programs do a terrible job of preparing you for. Algorithms are an iterative process, right? Algorithms have to continually be fed training data or other approaches, hyperparameter tuning, epochs, whatever you want to call it. But there is no single done state for an algorithm. You usually don't need that in most academic programs, right? In academic programs, you kind of write an algorithm and you kind of throw it away, right? You get to some desired answer or your professor tells you you're okay to continue and you kind of just throw it away, right? So in the real world, it's not going to be that way because you're rarely going to get good results in your first version of the algorithm. So learning how to iterate through an algorithm and iterating through the different growth cycles of an algorithm, super important, right? Super important to be able to recognize when you need to spend more time just growing the algorithm. Another thing that academic programs are not great at, over on Instagram, is it Nihar? I think it's Nihar says some kind of transformation. Nihar, let me know what you mean by that. I don't know which portion you were referring to. So Nihar, thank you. I think it's your first time. Some kind of transformation. Let me know what you're referring to there, Nihar. Sorry, I don't know exactly which section you're referring to. I assume you're talking about the data collection side, but let me know. So academic programs are not really good at telling you that algorithms need to be maintained. Right? Again, you develop something, you throw it away, you never look at it again. In the real world, you have to come back and prove that the algorithm is still holding, right? Like a data drift can happen in algorithms. The data you trained on this year might not be the same as the data you're collecting over time, right? So is the algorithm you deployed a year ago still holding up to current data that you're getting? Maybe yes, maybe no. You have to figure that out. You have to test it, and then you might have to make adjustments, maintain it, put out another version. Or maybe some of your data pipelines changed. Maybe now there's additional data available that wasn't available when you first wrote the algorithm, right? Maybe you can now recreate the algorithm with an additional 10 factors because you got a new data feed or a new API feed that somebody's now paying for. You gotta account for all that, right? You basically never have an opportunity to do that in academic courses. Sujay, welcome. I think it's your first time. Sujay says, which was the most senseless data set you came across, and did you make sense out of it? I had come across a data set with no column names, just ID as the first column. It was tax data. Okay, that's kind of cool. I like that. I had a test that was very similar to that, right? I've spoken about this before. If you're a data scientist, you should be able to take a data set that has no column names. You know, it doesn't matter, right? Did you know that it was tax data going into it, Sujay? Because I think a real test is that you don't even know the domain, right? Like if you can take a data set and you don't even know the domain, I think that's pretty cool. As far as the most senseless data set I've come across, I don't know if it was senseless, but I once worked for a client that received 500,000 phone calls every day. Incoming phone calls. 500,000 incoming phone calls on a daily basis. Now, I don't like talking too much about that client, but I've always had trouble imagining a company or an organization out there that gets more phone calls than that. There might be companies that make outbound calls like that, but incoming calls, 500,000 a day. It's like 10 calls a second or something like that when you do the numbers on it. It's ridiculous numbers. But that was a very interesting data set. Very interesting data set. Okay, Sujay says it was goods and services tax data from India. Yeah, but Sujay, did you know that it was tax data ahead of time? Like, were you told that it was tax data? Because if you know the domain, but there's no columns, that's a very challenging problem. I like that. That's pretty cool. If you don't know the columns and you don't know the domain, that's really, really interesting, right? The degree of difficulty kind of sort of goes up at that point, right? So I'd be interested in knowing if you knew that ahead of time or not. Oh, wait a minute. Are you the same Sujay that from Instagram? Did you come over to YouTube? I think you might be the same one. Who knows? Let me know. But yeah, that would be like my craziest data set that I've worked on. They also happen to have a really good DBA. I learned a lot from that DBA. Kind of a weird dude, you know, right? Because by the way, guys, if you don't know this, but the really good DBAs out there, like I'm talking like the world-class DBAs, they're usually weird people, right? Like you guys will find this in your careers, or maybe you already know. Let me know in the chat. But good DBAs are usually weird dudes, right? And this guy was a good DBA, and I'm talking like a world-class DBA, weird dude, right? It's cool that he's a DBA, but you don't want to hang out with him after work, right? He's the guy you're not inviting to the team happy hour, right? So yeah, but that was probably like the craziest or senseless data set I've ever worked on. There's other examples, you know. I don't like to talk about every client, but that one was unique because I have yet to find an organization that receives that many phone calls on a daily basis. If you guys know of one, let me know. But that was pretty wild. Okay, guys. So I think this is a good place for us to wrap up. Thank you so much for being here. We'll do this again tomorrow. Or Sunday, come back for the neural network series. I have that coming up. This is our 4th week doing neural networks. I think we had a really good time last week. Last week was fun. I had a good time during that session. So we're going to continue that this week. There's at least 2 more weeks of the neural networks class, and then we'll see what happens. Okay? So guys, thank you so much. As always, I appreciate all of you. I appreciate that we live in a dynamic world. So lots of crazy stuff going out there. So please, I worry about all of you guys. So take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you guys next time.